Order today is the 11th of April. The time is 3:04. With us today, we have Alderman Tolliver, Alderwoman Bay, Alderman Warman, Alderman Bung, and myself, Alderman Franco. First item is 24-0241, approval of the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting held on Thursday, March 28, 2024. We have a motion by
Second.
Alderman Warman, second by Alderman Tolliver. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, anybody from the public wishing to comment?
We do not have anyone signed up to speak.
Thank you. All right, next item is 24-0231, a resolution to award a contract to Geneva Construction Company, the amount of $5,616, or $616,891.50, and to appropriate $3.5 million of MFT funds for the 2024 citywide street resurfacing east project.
Good afternoon, Tim Wagner with the Engineering Division. So this is our yearly resurfacing contract. Something that we haven't done in the past couple of years is we actually took out two different contracts for this. The first contract was awarded INT on Monday, or recommended for approval at INT. This is the second contract. Basically, we split them up geographically, and the first one that went to INT did not have MFT funds. That's why I went to INT. And we also had some different bidder requirements to try and get different vendors to bid on the project, which we did have a third vendor bid. Geneva got the first one as well, so it wasn't any other vendor, but we thought this was a good exercise to kind of go back to that for this year, just due to the size of the program and, again, to kind of open up the competition, at least on that other project. Geneva was the low bidder. They've done the project past couple of years, do a lot of our federal projects. They're in town, so they do good work. So we'd recommend approval. One other thing to note is that we are doing some work in Wheatland Township on Wolf's Crossing. So in the future, we'll bring forward an IGA to kind of get reimbursed for that work. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on the project.
I have a question about the two contracts. So the goal is to have multiple parties being able to do this. Obviously, this time you say it's just Geneva, they have both. Do we also envision like a 50-50 thing, or is it always going to be like you do half, the other one does half, or is it going to be proportional? It could be 60-40 work, 70-30. How's that going to work?
So this one worked out where the one that was at INT was a little over $3 million. I think it was 3.3. So we'll probably vary it based on year. This one, it kind of made sense with the geographic divide.
Okay.
We wanted, at least for this first one, the one that we opened it up to other vendors, to have it on the smaller side compared to this one, just to see how it would work. We know some of the other vendors that can bid on it can do $5-6 million worth of work based on the references we've seen in other towns they do work in. So it might become more 50-50. I think for sure we'll do two contracts again next year. We'll just kind of tweak, the requirements on each.
So let's just say theoretically, we have two vendors for a whole citywide resurfacing program. 50% is going to be on the east side, 50% is going to be on the west side. Could we both start them at the same time? Like we typically will start, if we go east, we go through we migrate west, and kind of done in the fall, hopefully, unless it goes over next year. Could we do one starting in the east, one starting in the west, and kind of do it like that? Would that be envisioned for the future?
They could, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I
that
know there's always concerns about why are we always last, and, and maybe that would help that a little bit.
that was one of the other reasons that we went back to the two bid model, just in case we did get different vendors.
And how does it work? And it might even be a factor. Last couple of years, we haven't finished the projects. They spill over to the next year. So with multiple vendors, the vendor who actually had the work from the previous year has to finish up, even though we're going to get two new vendors potentially for the next year to catch up. How's that going to work? Or is that going to be a problem at all?
That we thought about that. We thought that we might have three different vendors in work doing town this year, and we would have been able to manage it from an engineering staff perspective. Because theoretically, you could have three people, and they all have subs, and could have different subs, and they could be
right.
Their concrete sub could be doing something, and then their milling paving subs is doing something. So you could have 6 different contractors working, but.
And I know the last couple of years that we've had rollovers to the next year for whatever reason. Do we think that we're going to catch up at some point in time? So like when the 2024 project's done, it's done? Do we foresee that, or do we think we're going to be rolling over for a number of years?
I mean, we're always able to, if the contractor doesn't get an extension, liquidated damages are an option. We definitely tightened up our completion date spec and put some new language in it for this year to hopefully
Okay.
hammer home that we want it completed this year.
Well, you know probably as well as anybody, there's people that, like, they're supposed to get it done in the fall, they start, oops, winter comes, and now they're like, hey, are you gonna finish our streets? And we're gonna start it in March or April, whatever the case may be. So there's always those concerns from people too. So obviously the
Right.
completion date would be better for everybody if we can get it in that same calendar year.
Correct, yes.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Comments? Alderman Buck?
Thank you. I know it, talking to residents about streets, you always throw in, it is dependent upon the weather. Everything is dependent upon the weather. So, on these, a couple things here, Mr. Widener. On the section where I'm adding in some funds, it kind of gets layered into the exhibits. I would see if we could add just a sentence in the legislative memo, just because once you start going through the exhibits, it a little bit looks like I'm just kind of throwing money in, and although I love Ward 5, I'm not putting in money to do anything in Ward 5. If we could just put something, one sentence in the legislative memo, that would help.
Okay.
I'll just put it that way. And then on our Wheatland Township, and I know we got to still do the IGA later. The parameters are from Hoffman. It says the Bodie, but actually it's to our end boundary, right? Because
Right.
there are,
The boundary is in between streets, so.
yes,
Yes,
okay. So to the end of Lakewood Valley, those houses, and that's the boundary.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
So on either side, the limits are in between streets.
Okay, yeah. So my only other thing, and this is, I guess, will be negotiated in the IGA, and I believe Wheatland Township has this thinking, but we have to ensure in there that they are gonna do Bodie to whatever end toward the railroad tracks at the same time. That was the whole point of this, so we could save money, they could save money, we could do it all together, and, so we want to make sure that they're doing the rest of theirs, that we just don't have a street and we have a cutout of 100 yards that's done, and then the rest is, what the residents say, it's like going on a roller coaster ride, and it is. So just as we had that discussion with Wheatland Township and the IGA, we want to make sure they're going to continue to do the rest of the road.
Well, I don't think it's in their program for this year to go all the way to the railroad tracks.
Yeah, not all the way, but I didn't want to put a pinpoint a place to Carl's or whatever else. I mean, past Bodie.
Well,
Or are you thinking it's just going to be our stretch, Hoffman to Bodie, and then that's it, and the rest of the street won't be done? Because that's not what we were envisioning when we had the discussions a year and a half ago.
well, to clarify, we're paving within their jurisdiction. So we're paving our jurisdiction, their jurisdiction up to a certain point, and then they're paying us for their portion.
Right. No, I understand our portion. It's because we own one side of the street and they own the other. So, yeah, so that's why we have the intergovernmental agreement. But I want to ensure that they are going to continue the paving Bodie toward the railroad tracks. And like I said, whatever, Bodie to Carl's, Bodie to something.
Well-
It doesn't make sense for, like I said, for you to drive 75 yards on a resurfaced road, then all of a sudden you're on cobblestone. If we're out there, and they'll be out there also, but I know.
Well, the point is they're not going to be out there. Our contractors
Well,
out there.
not while we're doing it. Well, we want to make sure that it's in their plan that they continue on. And it's not just, we've done this one section and the rest of the road is, haphazard.
I'm not sure what their long-term plan is, but I'm 99% sure they're not doing any work in 2024 on Wolf's Crossing to the east.
Okay. and maybe not just to interfere with ours. So have the discussion that they at least put in the plans for 2025. And that's discussions for the intergovernmental agreement. I just
Okay.
want to make sure that we are encouraging them to finish as much of the road as they can.
Okay.
I mean, we're doing this together so we can save them some money. So as we save them some money, we want to encourage them to complete the road. That's all I have.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Motion.
to approve. We got a motion by Alderman Mormon, second by Alderwoman Bay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 24-0233, a resolution authorizing the city to accept a grant award of $250,000 from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Who will be presenting on that? Oh, Lieutenant Rowley?
Good afternoon, Committee. Chairman, Lieutenant Bill Rowley, Administrative Services Lieutenant for the Aurora Police Department. Bringing this grant before you today. This is a grant offered by the state of Illinois in the amount of $250,000. This is a grant that serves the police department from January 1st of 2023 through June 30th of 2024. This is a very simple grant. They've offering us $250,000 for anything that's law enforcement related. So we took a hard look at our budget and decided that we would split that in half and try to give half of that money back to the city to reimburse for payroll, just a simple payroll reimbursement to the city. And the other half, the remaining $125,000, happens to be the amount of money that we spent this during that same cycle for FUSIS, which was recently brought before the committee and city council for approval. So that is our plan to use to pay for FUSIS and the other half for our personnel costs for that same grant period. We looked into the idea of maybe paying for multiple years of FUSIS, but that wasn't a permissible expense for the grant. And I also want to point out that I brought Mrs. Barbara Stagner. This is our grant writer for the Aurora Police Department. You see me bring a lot of grants before the committee and the council, but I thought it was prudent to show that this is the actual workhorse behind all this work that I'm bringing in front of you. Any questions for me?
Well, thank you, because we've been getting a lot of grants for them, so you've been doing a wonderful job, so appreciate that. Questions or comments from the committee? Motion to approve? Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Warren, we get a second by Alderman Tolliver. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item is 24-0234, a resolution establishing 2024 golf rates at Phillips Park Golf Course.
Good afternoon, Committee and Chairman. My name is Jeff Schmidt, Golf Operations Manager at Phillips Park Golf Course for the Golf Division under Parks and Recreation. Come to you with a resolution to establish the 2024 golf rates for the golf season. Our last adjusted rate came about 2 years ago in 2022. We've always been a historical provider of very competitive rates for the residents of Fox Valley and surrounding areas. We've also grown a reputation of being inviting to all golfers and skill levels of all players, and also having great course conditions with great customer service to pass along to our customers. We've subverted our landscape, and we want to better position ourselves amongst our competitors, but also remain attractive as an option to our core basic customers. Again, we are one of the most competitive priced golf courses in the Fox Valley, and we come to you with to review our proposed rates for 2024 golf season.
Questions or comments from the committee?
Motion to approve.
I have one question, and it's minute. It's just, I was just looking at numbers, the math. So I saw that the rates for bucket of balls went from $9 to $10. But a 20 bucket card is now $190. In the old way, if you got the 20 bucket thing, you save $20. Now, if you do the $20 thing, you're saving $10. I didn't know if you guys were going to keep that proportional or miss that, or that was, yeah, we see it, but we're just going on.
No, historically, I will just say prior to COVID, when golf was just flatline, you saw a major deep discounting on practice range balls, so on and so forth. And we put ourselves back in a position where we're competitive with everybody else. It's basically you're buying 19, you're getting a 20th free, basically saving 10%. But that is a reason why we increased it back in 2022 to the same scenario. But you know, that is the reason why that's gone up. It used to have a substantial savings, but anymore it's, you know, just to get us in a better position with everybody else.
Sure, right. And it's just basically what the competition is doing.
Yes, sir.
I get it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? We did have a motion approved by Alderman Beatty. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 24-0242, a resolution authorizing the execution of real estate contracts to purchase properties and appropriating rebuild Illinois bond funds required for the Indian Trail Road Signal Modernization and Resurfacing Edge along the Highland Project in the amount of $5,000.
Afternoon, Tim Widener, Engineering Division. So you've seen this project before. This is the third and final land acquisition purchase. So Alderman Bug, I believe you asked for a summary spreadsheet, which I will provide at a later date once this all gets approved. But I'd be happy to answer any questions on the project or process.
Questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Motion to,
Second.
We have a motion by Alderwoman Bates, second by Alderman Bug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anything else to come before the Finance Committee today? And I believe we do have a walk-on item.
Yes, I believe there was one item coming forward from IT.
Good afternoon, Chairman Franco, members of the committee. Jeff Anderson, Deputy CIO. We have before us here, I apologize for not getting this on the agenda, but we have a unique situation where we're trying to beat some significant price increases from a vendor. We have, I'll go through this slide deck here in a second. I just want to describe a little bit of our, we've been here since I've been here talking about our cloud-first strategy, moving to more of a managed service sort of a model, right? And one of probably the biggest things I think has touched each of you is when we moved our email to the Office 365 cloud, you know, what we were able to do then within IT was shift our focus from maintaining all of that metal infrastructure, if I can talk about it that way, backing up the mail server, making sure it's up and running and all of that, and switching to paying attention to better security, less spam, less phishing, those kinds of things, making it better and a better experience. So shifting towards a business model here, right? So what we have, just to talk about, and we'll jump into this here, when back in the day, and I can speak to this because I guess I'm aged enough here to talk about this, you would buy a computer and you would have it do certain things. You buy another computer and have it do other things. And then what you realize when you start having enough of these around, you have 6 or 8 or 10 of these large devices, they're used 30% of the time. So you create an environment where you create a virtual environment where you put multiples on one box and have them act as though they're 3 or 4 doing different things so that you can save money on the hardware. And that's what we've been managing for quite some time here at the city. What that puts in play, though, is you've got a lot of configuration between devices where you've got storage devices, you have the actual physical servers themselves, you have the software between all those. You have to keep all of that in sync, and it's sort of an interesting dance to try and make all of that work when you're dealing with 5 or 6 different vendors to make all of that work. And in addition, you end up having to overbuy the hardware because you have to keep up for the peak times, right? So you have to be able to process everything in peak time, and you also have to worry about times when a server might fail, and you would move all the services that are on that server to another server. So you end up buying more hardware than you actually need for a significant portion of the time. So that's sort of the VM environment we're here. What we've been working with Bob Irwin's here. He's a client executive from Insight. We've been working with them actually for about 1.5 years on this. We got down to really where it started to make sense with us here this year to go to an environment where this becomes a managed service. It's more of a cloud on-prem, if you will. So I'll try and jump through here quickly. This is what we've been managing for the city. Multiple environments. We have 2 data centers, one at the police department, one at the Fire Station 8. They should be exact replicas. They are not. Just over time, they've gotten out of sync. So we've got, we support CAD and RMS, our whole GIS system, phone systems, SQL database, and just basically file shares. What we've done over time is peeled email off of that. SharePoint's now in the cloud. We have many other services that have started to move to the cloud. Many of the services that are left, for various reasons, can't be moved to the cloud. What we're trying to do here is get out of the managing all of these various different vendors from Dell, VMware, Cisco, NetApp, all of these in this location where we get out of sync and we have to come back here and say, hey, I need a huge capital outlay to catch up on this. We want to move this to a CapEx model like we've done in a lot of other cases. And our issue here has really been, I'll talk about this again at the end as well, is that in November of last year, Broadcom purchased VMware and Broadcom CA, if any of you are familiar in that space, those guys really like to squeeze a lot out of their customers, and we're looking at potentially a tenfold increase in our cost for VMware. So what we're trying to do is get into this space where it's fully managed at a locked-in cost here before the end of the month and move to a full managed service model. So what we would have here, this graph is to simplify the model here. Instead of us managing that legacy 3-tier that's on the left-hand side, we'd have a simplified stack that our friends at Insight would come in and manage on behalf of us. So then we are shifting from not having to worry about the hardware components that are in there, the Windows, the VMware, and anything else that's on those boxes. We are simply worried about, is CAD up and running? Is it doing what it needs to, right? Is GIS doing what it needs to? Can we focus on that and make that work the way it's supposed to? That's what we're after here in this case, is a simplified model there, so we're not managing all of those various different vendors. Okay. So if I look, we'll jump to the costs here for this one. Again, we have 2 data centers. What you have here is a graph that shows a per data center cost. So what we have shown for our 4 different VM virtual machine clusters here is it's $202,000 annually if we went to this model, and so $405,000 a year to move to this model. Sounds like a lot of money, and it is. And if I jump ahead to the next page, we'll have the costs that we're offsetting in green here that we would no longer incur by moving to this model, and you can see that it is almost an even trade. The cost offset is equal, and that's what we've really been getting to. And another thing that affected this timing was we, in good faith, were working with Insight, Dell, Finance, Legal in March into April here on a 5-year arrangement. Broadcom, in their wisdom, came back and said, you know what, you can't sell that for 5 years anymore. You can only do it for 3. So that was 2 weeks ago. So now we're trying to scramble again and get the price down back to where it is equal again. Because obviously, over 3 years, they'd want to make more money annually. Well, we worked them down to where it would be a number that would make sense to us to go to this. We don't want to go to this and pay more money annually than what we'd be paying going in the future. So that's what this chart is attempting to show here. And then if we went as business as usual, and I apologize for the eye chart here, but real quickly, just showing cost increase for the next 3 years. If we went business as usual with this, our estimates are we would pay $1.4 million over the course of the 3 years. And so if we go to the model here with the Insight solution, we'd end up paying $1.2 million, 1.217, so a savings of $188,000, which is about 13% savings over the course of the 3 years going to this model. Okay. And that's if we did like for like, which we know we really can't now. We've got to buy more expensive equipment, and you'll see in the memo, I actually touched on that in the cover memo, that if we bought the exact equipment that Insight and Dell are going to bring on location here, it would be much more expensive as well than that. We think it'd be more of a 20% savings there as well. So the quick summary here, and then I'll take, I'm sure, a bunch of questions on this, is that this reduces the costs and inefficiencies of our server environment. Again, us having to keep all of these vendors juggling amongst ourselves here. We will have one back to Pat here, and that'll be Insight, who will help us keep all of these things in line, manage that whole environment for us. It eliminates capital costs and overbuying of hardware to handle peak times. So they're going to bring in servers that are bigger than what we need. We're going to be charged on consumption, so what we use, okay? So if we use less, we'll pay less. We use a little more, we'll pay a little more, and we'll manage down to that to get it to where it needs to be, so we stay with under what we're asking for here, okay? It also will provide fully redundant environments between APD and Fire Station 8, which again, we don't have at the current time. They're close, but they're not exactly redundant. And again, the fees are based on consumption. They're based on use. So in our current environment, again, we had to overbuy the hardware to handle the peak load times, which means we've got a percentage of the time when those computers aren't doing, aren't running at full capacity. So that's in summary here of what we've got, and I can pause here and take some questions.
Questions or comments from the committee? Alderman Bade?
Thank you, Jeff. We didn't get a chance to go through it
Understood.
in detail, but solution total will be also for 3 years?
Yes,
And is it going to be at one location, or it still will be at 2 locations?
it'll be at the 2 locations. So what we'll get is 2 sets of equipment. I'll just call it one big stack in both locations. One at Police Department, one at Fire Station 8. And so they will mirror each other. They will serve as each other's backup throughout the process.
And have we had any work done with solution total before, or any contracts or anything?
With Insight in particular?
Yeah.
Yes, we have. In fact, Insight actually was the company we utilized to image all of the devices, and they maintain those images for the new 911 center. So when we rolled out all the computers and all the equipment there, they were the ones who put all the images on there and then managed those for us going forward.
And they're aware of how things work with the city?
They are, and we make sure they know every day who we are in the city of Aurora and where we are as far as population-wise in the state. And as you can see, they're local. Insight is local.
Okay. Thank you.
They actually have a huge facility in, Bob, where's your facility again? It's in Hanover Park. And so when we were working with them through the PSAP, we went up and visited. We went up, and that's where actually we got the equipment sent to and imaged, and we brought it back down here for the PSAP as well.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question or two. So who else uses this system? I don't know if that's for the petitioner over there that's going to be working on that. I mean, whether our municipalities are using this, do we know? Do we have any idea?
So I will have a more detailed list for committee of the whole. The 2 that I know of for sure is Lake County uses this approach, and the state of Iowa uses this approach as well.
All right, and then the other question I had, because like I said, we didn't have a whole lot of time to go through this. There's a cost avoidance going this way of $406,000. I know you said it
Yeah.
was less expensive, but that seems pretty significant too.
It is, and and I need to align my PowerPoint with the memo. The memo is covering if we bought like for like. So we know they're going to bring in better equipment than we have now, and if we went out and bought that, our savings would be higher. What I did in the PowerPoint here was just said if we replace the equipment we have today with similar equipment, the gap's a little smaller. The cover memo covers being a little higher, right? And you may be asking, why would a vendor want to get into this into this space? If you think about what's happening in the IT world, everybody's trying to get to the cloud, including us. And so what you have is all of this processing power is converging at these large data centers around, and you've got folks like Dell and others who still, need to be able to sell to other customers, right? So what they've created here for us is a hyper-converged environment, which is a buzzword to really say it's an on-premise cloud environment. So to us, we will manage it just like how we manage the Office 365 space in the cloud. We're not worried about the hardware. We are managing the applications on the hardware themselves. If that makes sense.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Motion to approve. Do you have a second? Second. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. This is for information only. I do have one more thing before we do adjourn with that, is that because we're bringing it on walk-on, I would emphasize as a committee of the whole that it's a time thing, that you really want to get this done. That's kind of why that happened. I mean, we get it here, but
Yeah.
we want to emphasize that again, too.
Understood. I'll emphasize that better up front.
And it happens. We understand it happens, but we just want to say, oh, by the way, we had to get this done because we're running out of time. That's everything.
And I apologize for all this. We literally thought we had a deal 3 weeks ago, and then Broadcom said, yeah, you can't sell this for 5 years ananymore.
Okay.
And so that kind of
Sure.
put us all behind the 8 ball here.
That's
Right.
understandable. It just needs to be brought up.
Right.
Okay, good. All right, well, thank you.
Thank
you very
you.
much. Okay. Anything else to come before the committee this afternoon?
Motion to adjourn.
Hearing none, we have a motion to adjourn by Alderwoman Bates, second by Alderman Warman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned at 3:33. Thank you.